And certainly one of those issues that's been talked about now for more than a decade is the DREAM Act, which
Yes.
you've mentioned. We've talked about this issue on this program before, and there was a lot of hope that it would finally pass in some form, and those hopes were dashed.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the future for the DREAM Act, and also if you can give our audience an understanding of what this is? Because I think those who are against the DREAM Act often put out a lot of misinformation, and folks
Right.
don't really understand exactly what the DREAM Act is.
Well, the DREAM Act was another way of being able to talk about one of the issues that, quite frankly, people on both sides of the aisle were ready to talk about. Republicans and Democrats, as well as independents, had largely talked about the fact that there was one group of people that they could all begin to rally around, and that was a group of individuals that had come to this country without any decision of their own, really, to break the law or to come here without documentation. And these were young men and women, many of which have only known this country as their only country, many of which only know the English language and have even difficulty speaking in Spanish. These are the sons and daughters of people that came here with, mom and dad who had, come here illegally or without documentation. The DREAM Act was trying to give an opportunity to these students to become active contributors to our country without necessarily having to do it under the table. A lot of these students all of these students actually were students that were accomplished, students that had great grades in school, that were going places, that either wanted to serve in the military or also wanted to perhaps go and pursue a bachelor's degree and a higher education to begin to contribute to this nation.
And it should be clear that the legislation, which many people were shocked did not pass, required that for the ability to stay in this country legally.
It did.
You had to go into the military or pursue 2 years of post-secondary education.
Right. And a lot of people even were confused about the 2-year portion. That was 2 years towards a bachelor's degree. It wasn't any 2 years / anything. I mean, it was 2 years towards a bachelor's degree. So we were trying to get these students on that route, and many of them are already on this route. And here's the thing. If you were to listen to the rhetoric around the day where that was actually passed in the House and then the days that followed that up with the Senate, a lot of people were always talking about chain migration. They were talking about, well, this is going to open up the door for people to come into this country illegally. And a lot of them were pointing to pieces like, once you become a citizen of the United States, you'll be able to claim certain family members to begin a process of becoming a citizen in this nation. However, there were already provisions in the law that didn't make that a possibility until 12 years later. And we're talking 12 years later of a student that largely was going to be already headed off to college. So you were already beginning to deal with some of these things that people were actively voicing their opinion against. At the end of the day, this was a big defeat, I feel, not only for the U.S. Hispano-Latino community, but to America as a whole. UCLA did an incredible study where they kind of quantified the amount of dollars that the United States was missing out in preventing effectively these students from becoming active contributors to their community. And they put that around $1 to $2 billion of revenue that our economy could have utilized at a time when the economy is not doing such a good job. And the biggest frustrating part about this, talking about important issues to the Latino Hispano community in America, is that at the end of the day, the Democrats could have made this happen. And 5 Democrats voted against it. It was 55 to 41. This was a cloture vote, and for those people that don't know what cloture means, it's just a way, a maneuver that the Senate utilizes to be able to avoid having the filibuster utilized. And so because it was a cloture vote, you needed to get 60 votes. However, with the votes that they had at the time, the 55 to 41 and that situation, they could have actually passed it into law if it was a normal vote. But it wasn't. It was a cloture vote. And so 5 Democrats voted against, and people, particularly in the circles that I've been in, and begin to say, well, the Republicans are certainly not delivering. I mean, if you listen to the rhetoric on the House when they were talking about it, it was so vitriolic, it was so disconnected from the experience that these families have had and that Americans have had as immigrants, frankly. But then at the other end of the table, you talk to the Democrats, and Democrats waited until the lame duck session to bring this up.
Yeah. Now, do you think that this will have long-lasting implications for Democrats?
I do. I think Democrats don't really realize that right now there is an active fight going on, really, for the Latino Hispano vote. And when you have people like Susana Martinez in this state, here from the Las Cruces area, now governor from the Republican side, and you have other people like Marco Rubio over in Florida, a lot of people are going to begin to look for alternatives. You know, what can we do if either side is not delivering? And some people even beginning to talk about the fact that maybe a rise of an independent party, or not even a party, but an independent movement along the lines of what the agenda that the Latino Hispano community wants is something feasible. I think we're a lot further off from that than in reality, but the talk being there is important.
Yeah. Hector, as we close, do you think this is an opportunity as well, the DREAM Act and immigration issues, to also talk to all Americans about the importance of cultural diversity and the strength that gives to our entire country and to all people?
You know, absolutely. I think sometimes we kind of miss out on the opportunity to realize how neat the community of Las Cruces and El Paso is in comparison to the rest of the nation. I think El Paso and Las Cruces get an opportunity to deal day in and day out with issues that affect the Hispano-Latino community to the point that they see them as mainstream American issues. There's areas in this nation where that conversation has not occurred in, and I think that this is the perfect opportunity to begin to point people in the direction of saying, look, the demographics of America are changing. Take a look at the new census figures. We have a big job ahead of us, and it's to discuss the future of America. And this discussion has one big player at the table that's largely a brand new face in America, and that's the Hispano-Latino community. And it's a discussion that not just that community should be involved in. It should be all of us.
Hector H. Lopez, thank you for being part of that discussion today.
Thank you very much for having me, Fred. I appreciate being here with you.
Thank you.